Let's talk about a word we all think we know, respect. We use it all the time, right? It feels universal. But what if I told you that single word is actually a stand-in for wildly different ideas around the world? What if the word itself is hiding the real story? Well, let's dig in. So here's the puzzle that gets this whole thing started. In English, we've got one main word, respect. Simple enough. But in Mandarin Chinese, you've got at least two very common, very distinct terms, sunzong and sunjing. And that immediately makes you wonder, when we're talking about respect, are we even talking about the same thing? Now, the traditional way of thinking about this gives us a pretty neat and tidy answer. You've got zunzheng, which is kind of like a horizontal respect. You know, the respect you give a friend, an equal. It's about their rights, their autonomy. Then you have zunjing, which is more vertical. It's that reverent, deep respect you show for an elder, a teacher, or a boss. Seems straightforward, doesn't it? Well, researchers wanted to know if it was really that simple. To really get to the bottom of it, they surveyed 416 college students in China. They basically asked them, hey, when you think of zunzhong, how important is honesty? How important is politeness? And they did the same for zunjing. Okay, this is where our story takes its first big, unexpected turn. You've got two words that are supposed to be different, so you'd expect to see two totally different sets of answers. But when the numbers came in, what did they actually say? Well, would you look at that? The scores are almost exactly the same. For these super important ideas like mutuality, honesty, morality, there's barely any daylight between zunzong and zunjing. In fact, the researchers looked at 18 different features, and not a single one showed a statistically significant difference. And that is our first aha moment. When you just look at the quantitative data, the two concepts look identical. The neat and tidy distinction we started with just evaporates. So what on earth is going on here? This creates a brand new puzzle. I mean, if hundreds of people rate them pretty much identically across the board, maybe they're just synonyms now. Maybe in modern China, the old distinction has just faded away. But not so fast. Because the researchers also asked people a more open-ended question. And this is where all that nuance comes flooding back. It turns out, while they share a ton of common themes, two ideas came up only for zunjing. The first was about respecting social boundaries and rules. You know, not gossiping. The second was about social status and competence. Things like having a high status or being successful. So the core might be the same, but zunjing has this extra layer of social hierarchy that the numbers alone just couldn't see. Now let's zoom out, because the study didn't just stop there. To get a real cross-cultural picture, they also surveyed 227 college students in the US about their single, solitary concept of respect. And for the American participants, what's most central to respect? Things like honesty, listening, and acceptance. You can see there's a really strong focus on interpersonal sincerity, on truly hearing and validating the other person as an individual. It's a slightly different flavor, a different emphasis than the Chinese top 5. And this is where you can see how differently the whole concept is wired. Now, these charts might look a little complicated, but they tell a really powerful story. They basically show which ideas are strongly connected to each other. For the Chinese concept of zunjing on the left, you see these hot spots connecting things like politeness and deference. But for the US concept on the right, the connections, the hotspots, are in totally different places, linking things like honesty and acceptance. The actual architecture of the idea is different. So if you boil it all down, what does it mean? Well, the research points to this really fundamental difference. In the Chinese context, respect seems to be all about maintaining moral character within your relationships to keep social harmony. But in the US context, it's more about individual authenticity and being open with each other. And digging even deeper, the researchers found something fascinating. Both zunzhong and zunjing are actually built from the same three core ingredients: moral integrity, assertiveness, and open courtesy. They share the exact same building blocks. So if they're made of the same stuff, where does that deep difference really come from? And here it is. This is the secret. It's not about the blocks themselves, but how they're glued together. For zunjing, the link between being a moral person and being courteous is really strong. But for zunjing, that hierarchical respect, the connection is an incredible 0.903. What that means is, for zunjing, being moral and acting with formal politeness are almost inseparable. They are practically the same thing. Okay, so this is all really cool academically speaking, but what's the point? What are the real world takeaways? Why should we care about all these deep seated differences in our everyday lives? Well, if you're raising kids or teaching students, this is huge. Children learn what respect is from the culture around them. So, in one context, a child is taught that respect means deferring to authority, almost like a moral duty. That's a Zunjing script. In another, a child learns respect is about mutual rights and having an open conversation. Neither one is better, but understanding which script is running can explain so much about different ideas of discipline and communication. And you see this play out all the time in global workplaces. An American manager might give really direct, open, and honest feedback, thinking it shows respect for an employee's ability to handle it. But to someone operating from a harmony-focused script, that could feel incredibly rude. On the flip side, a Chinese colleague showing deference isn't just being quiet. They might be actively performing zunjing, which in their book is the highest form of professional respect. And really, that's the whole point. As the lead researcher, C. Liu, says so well, it's all about fostering better communication. Once you understand that different cultures prioritize totally different parts of respect, you can start to bridge those gaps instead of just getting confused or offended by them. So it turns out that a simple, everyday word like respect isn't simple at all. It's like a suitcase carrying all this deep cultural meaning inside. And that kind of leaves you wondering, right? What other words that we use every single day, words like love or freedom or success, are also carrying these hidden worlds inside them just waiting to be unpacked?